Welcome back to the Ones Who Live podcast with Sonia, Jill, Kira, and Sarah Beth. We are here this week to talk about episode 2. Let's get right into it. What's the first thing that we want to jump into today?
I'd say let's address the elephant in the room. Why some of us rated this episode the lowest. Not because the episode was not good. It was wonderful. But Nat. Wonderful, wonderful Nat. Losing him after we just got him was horrible. And that's why, personally, that's why I rank this as the lowest episode of the ones we've seen, just because, damn it, I really liked him and I wanted him to stick around. What a great character. I love the friendship he and Michonne have, and he was such an interesting character, and it just blows that we lost him so soon.
This shortened screen time for awesome characters is very confusing to me. Like, on the one hand, like, how amazing is it to have fallen for a character so quickly, and then they just steal them from you in the same episode. I don't get it. I know it's only 6 episodes, but man, I wish he had at least made it to the CRM or something. I don't know. He's one of the best characters that they've had in this universe in like a bunch of years. Just, clever and resourceful and imaginative and funny, and then that's enough of him. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It was jarring.
He can't get rid of Negan after all these fucking seasons. Can't get rid of him. But we only get a few minutes with Nat. That's not okay. Not all right.
From the moment he walked onto the screen, it's like, oh my gosh, I love this character. He's so amazing. He's going to be fantastic. Like, you just know that he's going to be someone you're going to love. And then he almost dies, and then he makes it, and you're like, oh my God, he really is going to make it. And then he doesn't.
Do you think that Michonne would have made it through the gas attack without him? I'm not so sure.
No.
She really depended on him for her mental health to get her back into wanting to fight to live.
She wouldn't have made it through the walkers.
She was stuck there for a whole year, and in that mall, like, she's looking out the window. I don't like being isolated that long. She definitely would have been crazy if nothing else.
Yeah.
Would she have made it? He gave her the strength to keep going after they got to the dock or whatever with all the dead bodies, all the burnt bodies.
Mm-hmm.
He gave her hope to keep going. And if she was just like alone and in her head, I honestly don't know what she would have done or what decision she would have made by herself.
Even the whole time.
It's also really sad that. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to say, even the whole time he was saying go home, he was still there with her, letting her know that he was there to the end.
I was just going to say, it's really sad that you have someone, and I think this has been a critique of the Walking Dead universe in general, that someone who made it this far ends up dying so quickly. He's been through a lot, obviously, and then he made it, and then to go through so much, to survive the gas, to do all of these things, and then have it. I mean, it's great writing, but it really, like, it's one of the great losses that I can remember in recent memory. That, I mean, he's one you just didn't want to see go.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, you could have just let him go back to Alexandria for all of this.
Yeah, they should have just let him go back. Like, I don't know why they didn't let him leave. And then oh god, I'm blanking on their names. The couple, the exceptionally tall redheaded lady and her boyfriend,
Oh, Aiden.
Aiden, and well,
Oh,
anyway, that was heartbreaking to see. And when she tells Michonne to go back to her babies, I was like, oh no. Like I thought that I really liked her too. I really liked them.
I did too.
And I felt like the small screen time that they had, especially the lady, I felt was also exceptional. I felt like everything. I feel like all the choices being made in terms of the casting and the dialogue is really tight.
It felt like the early Walking Dead years to me, where people are meeting and they're forming connections right away and just focusing on surviving. It had that kind of vibe, and I really liked it. I didn't realize how much I missed it.
And now there would be a really great episode of Tales of the Walking Dead to go follow those caravan people for a while too, and give Nat a chance to come back and a few years before and what that was all about, because that was a fascinating group.
Yes, and I was very curious. I actually made a note about this when they were their leader was talking to Michonne about the migration patterns. I wondered if that was tied to Tails, when we had
Yes.
the doctor who was tracking their movements. Like the herds that he was seeing, were they coming from the north? And was that part of the migration pattern that he was trying to plot? That would be a
Mhm.
great tie in. I really miss Tails. I know that people had mixed feelings about Tails, and there were definitely some that I didn't like, but I liked the concept overall.
Me
And I
too.
would love to see some of these other stories tied together through Tales episodes.
I feel like I didn't see enough Tales episodes, so there's that.
Well, it just goes to show how big this universe is and how many stories there are to tell, because there at every turn. I mean, there's we talked about this in the last episode. There's a question right there. That was a long caravan of people. Now,
Yes.
are you telling me that the CRM didn't know about them? Or are you telling me that, or here's another possibility. Did they get bombed with the mustard gas or the chlorine gas? Did they get wiped out?
Well,
Like, are they
well,
already gone?
yeah,
That's what I was
Nat
thinking.
mentions. Well, no. How did he know? No, he said he knew about it in high school. That's right.
Yeah, he wanted to wipe out the football team.
Right.
I feel like,
Actually,
sorry, I was gonna say, I feel like that helicopter that bombed them, like, yes, they saw them, but I feel like they were flying around that area because they actually saw the larger caravan first. So
wait, how do you know that?
I just feel like that's because, like, so you see the tiny little group, but you don't see the very, very large group that they just broke off from.
Well, they've gone in opposite direction for some time. I mean, I know it's a helicopter, but why would you kill any group?
Exactly.
What would be the reasoning behind that? Like, let me just dump this mustard. Oh, look, there's some people. Like, it's not going to work on walkers. So why would you just kill a bunch of random people who are trying to survive out there? Like, what purpose
Yeah.
does that serve?
I
Yeah, so
thought they
that's
were
one of those
collecting
questions.
people. Weren't they
Yeah,
collecting? They want bees, and these people clearly would have been bees in their minds. They didn't know that both Michonne and Nat are definitely A's, but they don't know that.
I don't understand the motivations of a lot of the things that CRM is doing. How does that save people bombing a bunch of people kind of just who are just out who are just unfortunately just out there? I don't know.
I wonder if it
Um
has to do with which direction they're going, though. Like proximity to their, so obviously there's Portland and Omaha and Philadelphia. Like if they were heading towards Philadelphia, would that make them a threat? Or if they're moving away, do they just kind of leave them like the people, like the Fear the Walking Dead people? Obviously, the CRM knew about them because they were landing their helicopters near whatever the little western town was. Like they knew about them, but they didn't feel like they were a threat. So do they just leave non-threats alone, or are once you're identified as a threat, is that when you get targeted and somehow, because we don't really know where. I mean, I guess we kind of know because they were we don't really know where they were when they got hit with that gas, right? Like, do we know?
Yeah.
Like, we
They
don't
We
weren't
know
know.
too
they were
far from the
heading
dock.
for the shipyards.
Yeah.
They were heading for New Jersey. So maybe that's why. Maybe they were close at that point, and so they
but
wanted to not have them discover the shipyard.
But even if they were that close, why kill them though? Like, they have vetting process. They have a whole city. What's a couple of dozen people going to do? You have a whole military operation and a city, and you hold a city. Like, I don't understand what the reasoning could possibly be for just randomly killing people who are just outside walking. It's weird. Definitely evil, but I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the point because they can.
I don't know. They don't seem randomly evil. They seem very strategically evil. We're going
But
to
what?
need to get some answers on this from somebody who knows a little more about it, because it definitely doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
We had another name for the walkers too in this episode. That group calls them the Wailing.
Oh, yes.
So we can add that to the list of terms that people use for the dead.
And it makes a lot of sense. Wailing. Or has anyone ever called them moaners? Is that too on the nose?
I don't think I've ever heard that term.
I
Like,
think
oh
I've
God,
only
here come the
heard,
moaners again. Oh, Jesus.
I think the closest was groaners.
The
We had
shufflers.
groaners? Who called them groaners?
I think Maggie did in Dead City.
Did she?
Are she abandoned walkers?
I wasn't paying too much close
No.
attention in Dead City, so
That was a one watch stop for me. I like Delts though for some reason.
Yeah, I want to know where that one came from, actually.
Pearl.
No, but like, I want to know.
what's the derivation? Like the
Yeah.
rest of them make sense. The Wailing, the Walkers, there's a clear reason why those terms are used, but Delts doesn't. There's no obvious connection.
I did want to say right at the beginning of the episode, it felt so much like the introduction of Connie's group to the main show, when they were all standing in front of them, introducing themselves, and then, she's sitting there introducing herself to... Does this group have a name?
I don't think they do.
No, they're just a caravan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next
But
group.
I don't know.
That's what
It
they're
put me
called.
in the mind of that episode. Watching that scene, it just reminded me a lot of that episode.
So her journey, she ran into these people pretty much right after she left. So I find it interesting that her journey was pretty much solitary. She was not roaming around, interacting with a bunch of groups. Like we had speculated when she left that she might be out there being the heroine and saving a lot of people, but really she was just trying to save herself and Nat for most of the time that she was gone.
Have we established a timeline yet?
Michonne's
I was
timeline.
trying to do this earlier. And so it said in the beginning of the episode, it said it was 6 years after the bridge. And when she found those two whose names we don't remember, she found them right after she left
Yeah.
the island.
When she
found the boots.
When she and Nat leave, that's year 7. When they leave the mall, anyway.
Year 7 since Rick's been gone?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's what I was trying to figure out, is how long. So he's been gone. Like, so there's like, if you make a timeline, so he's been gone, and then she left and immediately ran into those people, and then at least a year or so passes. They were recovering from the gas, and then right after that, I mean, so really she's been gone or she's been on the road for what, maybe 2 years
Yeah, about 2 years.
at most. So that
Yeah.
makes it even more interesting to put into perspective what Rick's been through because she's only been away for, such a short period of time, and that kind of explains, like, when she has that breakdown moment, which was heart-wrenching, when she, was basically considering, giving up and keeping the memory alive. It's like she was still wanting to go on, but she still had hope that he was alive. But by that point, Rick had been completely institutionalized, which is fascinating for, given what happened.
I
Yeah,
just
I
want
really wanted to say I loved, before we talk about the reunion, because we have a lot to talk about with that, but I love the fact that Michonne has her own hero's journey separate from Rick. Like, he has his and she has hers, and then they're going to have one together. But I absolutely love that if you break down, there's like 12 steps in the mythic hero's journey, and she hits all of them in this particular journey that she's on. And so in this phase of her journey, we see her go through, like, facing her deepest fears, facing her loneliness, and then she has to face this big challenge, which is the gas attack, and then the road back with Nat, and then this resurrection after the gas, and then she finally finds him. And it's so, you don't usually see women get to have a hero's journey. Typically, there are companions or muses or in some way ancillary to a man's journey. So I love that Michonne gets her whole entire journey on her own.
and she gets a badass uniform.
She does. That is the best armor I think we've seen in this show.
I was looking at the what's the word? Her outfit. That's not the word I want. Not armor. That's another word. Anyway, I was looking at it in the detailing, and it's, when you think about it, it is so Michonne coded. With the brown leather, harkening back to her original vest and the lace ups and whatnot in the detailing. It was just like, it felt like revamped Michonne, which I think is excellent. Um, it was very her, so I think they did a really good job there.
It shows all the care that was put into this story because they have taken all of these elements of these characters that we love throughout the years, and they've worked in bits of their past, bits of their stories into this new chapter. It's wonderful.
I just have to backtrack a little bit to Michonne and Nat by the fire. It doesn't matter how many times I watch this episode. It doesn't matter how many times I watch that scene. She breaks me down to tears every single time.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, it's hard to watch. It's hard to, and for me personally, and I know that this is just my journey, but I sent my ex-husband to combat 3 times. So I have had those nights where I
Mhm.
was sitting up at 3 in the morning getting the call that somebody had died, not knowing who and not knowing if it was him, and knowing that even if it wasn't him, somebody had died. So one of my friends was going to be up knowing she just lost her husband, and I felt that. I felt every tear. It was rough. Denai did an astounding job.
If you listen to that cry with, like, if you just close your eyes and listen to her cry, it's like whatever the moment was for you, you could identify with that agony that she was going through. If you ever, like, it just makes memories come flooding back of the reasons why I've, like you said, why personally, each individual watching it, whatever they've gone through, they're gonna have memories of feeling that same way and understanding what she's going through in that moment.
Like a universal expression of pain.
Mhm.
That's deep.
You know, a lot of people made comments about her leaving her kids, and she's a bad mom, and her kids, and so I like that throughout the episode, it's like she knows that she's too far, but she still has to keep trying to see if Judith will answer her back on the radio.
I wonder too if she felt the more she traveled north and she knew that she was getting out of range, I wonder if she just felt a little bit of desperation. Like maybe before that, she had always known that it was still possible to get her on the radio. It was still possible to hear her voice. But she
Mhm.
knew that once she got out of range, that was it. And she might never hear it again. That had to be exceptionally difficult.
Yeah. And then, you know, the radio being turned on is what really broke her all the way down at the fire with Nat.
I don't think she would have left if well, one, she had concrete evidence that he survived that bridge. It's the first thing. And then the second thing is she left her children in the care of Daryl, which is a good sound choice, given who's there at that time.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, he left. But she doesn't know that. And no one ever mentions how Daryl abandoned the children. But anyway,
And also Aaron. I mean, Aaron's a good dad, but also Aaron went off all the time too, and nobody ever calls Aaron a bad dad.
no,
Mhm.
but especially Daryl. She left those kids with Daryl, not Aaron. And then he was just like, "All right, y'all, peace out."
Well,
And
to
hop
be
on my
fair,
hog
he
now.
didn't, he didn't, we don't know, we don't, I mean, he didn't go by choice. I mean, if he could have, he was going to go back, right? Like,
Well, no,
then he got
but he does
mixed up with those
leave.
people.
Like he like what about this? He does leave though. I'm just saying, just to put it in context, like Rick gets accused of leaving his kids, of leaving Judith, which doesn't happen. He's taken, and then it's like, oh, Michonne's such a bad mom. She left the kids with their uncle, and then the uncle leaves because I'd have to rewatch that again. The last episode.
Didn't he take off because he was gonna go keep looking for Rick?
So he said,
Yeah,
if I see them while I'm out there, I'll bring
yeah,
them
like
back.
yeah.
Okay.
What does that even mean? Like
Well,
what?
maybe he was looking for Michonne. Maybe, I mean, maybe they were at a point where they didn't have to work. I mean, like, we have to assume that things were going decently well in the
I'm
Commonwealth, or,
I'm just saying, if people are going to be pointing the finger at Michonne, they need to be pointing the finger at Daryl because he leaves.
I
That's all I'm
feel
saying.
like he
I
left
don't really.
because
I'm not upset about it. I'm just saying because I'm sick of seeing it. Like, oh, she's a
Mhm.
terrible mom. Okay, well then Daryl's terrible too. So shut up. That's all I'm saying.
It's a
I'm
double standard to hold her
right.
accountable to some higher vision of motherhood, but not hold the men accountable to the same standard for fatherhood.
Exactly. And batshit insane to even put Rick in the conversation. The guy who was taken.
Yeah, that's
That he abandoned him. He got blown off a bridge and was taken in the helicopter. He left his family. Wait, what?
that asshole. How dare he?
But wait, because wait, just real quick, because I totally agree with you. But now something's just popping into my head because I don't remember the details. But didn't Judith tell him finally that his mom that her mom went to find Rick because he was alive?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, wouldn't that be the motivation considering like what Rick's death did to him?
So
And again, it doesn't excuse. I'm definitely not trying to defend here, but I am saying I think that was what was motivating those trips, was trying to find her to bring her and Rick back to Judith, or at least trying to help, because that's kind of their familial bond was trying
I
to help
well,
each other.
also right before he
yeah.
left, there was that scene where he went to go see Maggie and she looked at all of them and was like, there's a lot more out there and we need to, you know, find it or find people. And so I always felt like that was his initial motivation of getting back on the road. And that's why he kind of said, if I see them while I'm out there, I'll bring them back, because I think Maggie not sent him, but put the idea in his head to get back on the road.
Maggie strikes again.
Well, Daryl is an outdoor cat, not an indoor cat. He needs to be on the road. He doesn't settle well.
It's cool. It's fine. I like the Daryl Dixon show. I'm just, it's just such a false narrative. That's all, to say that Michonne's a bad person or a bad mom to try and bring her husband home. I don't think that she is. She couldn't take the kids feasibly with her, so.
And they're fine. They have their village. They have Carol, they have Ezekiel, they have Aaron, they have Gabe. They're fine. They have a lot of people looking after them.
Although Carol's leaving soon too, apparently.
Well, Carol doesn't count. She doesn't need to be around the kids.
Maybe it's a good thing. But steering back to this episode, steering back to Gone, are we going to talk about the moment?
I guess we should. What a moment it was, too. And what struck me immediately about it, how perfect it was for these characters. Because a whole fairy tale romantic reunion would not have been authentic to who they are. This reunion was the most authentic reunion for these two, and I thought it was absolutely perfect.
I loved multiple things about it. Even the things leading up to it, like watching Rick's helicopter go down from Michonne and Nat's point of view was very cool to me. And then being on the ground with them, it truly looked like a war movie for a minute. Like, I just felt like the scene was very well put together. And I love stories like that anyway, that you can kind of go through and see the end, and then you go back and see it from a different point of view and get a completely different story out of it.
It's very fairy tale in that it's like they slay the dragon and then they find the prince for a moment. And then you wonder, is Rick still Rick? Right? Because when we last see him, he had kind of resigned himself to being in the CRM and living that life. And he's devastated when Okafor dies. I think he's like, oh, it caught him off guard. But then when Nat gets shot, he immediately runs and just takes that guy out.
Yep,
no hesitation. It's like, you son of a bitch, could have shot her.
Yeah.
Was the reunion what you were expecting? Any of you?
I don't know what I was expecting. I don't know. Like, there were so many avenues where this could have gone, and they find, like, how they first find each other. She's covered in guts, hanging outside the prison gate, and he, his son makes the choice to save her, and he finally gets on board. And then here, like, he's about to die. She's about to cut his neck. And then it's like, oh no, wait. I don't know. I mean, it fits the story. I still have to, I'm still processing this. Like, I need to watch it yet again.
I love that it shocked the crap out of me the first time around, a lot more than the second time around, of course, because then you realize them like you're watching it from the other point of view. But I also love that from Rick's point of view, his face looked completely different when he realized it was Michonne than from Michonne's point of view. From Michonne's point of view, he kind of like smirked at her and got up to greet her. And from his point of view, there was a little bit more hesitation. Did anyone else
he was on
see that?
he was on the helicopter. I mean, he was the people who tried to kill her. I mean, for all she knew.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, being Rick, he immediately shifted to protection mode.
Right.
Right into, okay, I already called them. They're coming. What are we going to do? I have to protect her.
While also he was also making it very clear he was not with them.
Mhm. He immediately dropped into that, like, vulnerability with her, and he dropped his head like, I'm not with them. I just love I don't know, I felt like he went to a place he, like, immediately fell into a place of, like, I don't know, comfort with her and wanting to be honest right up front and wanting her to know where he stands immediately.
Yeah, for me, that moment was so important because it's almost her expression was, I think he saw that maybe his people had done something, or he feared that his people had done something, because he would know, right? He would know that that the helicopters are going around. They just shot him down. So clearly they perceived him to be an enemy, as far as he knew. So I think,
Right.
he had to make that clear, like, I am not with them, because there was that expression of, like, as much as that awe played out on his face, there was like that little bit of it was concern, but it was also just terror on her face at the idea that the person that she loves is one of the people in those helicopters.
I think this is too the first time that she gets an inkling that he has been through some shit, and
Oh, yeah.
he's not the same man who left. And when he starts telling her how she's got to act and what she's got to do, she seems a little, I mean, she obviously jumps right on board. She trusts him, but she seems a little, I don't want to say confused, but hesitant. And I think she's kind of thinking, okay, he's not himself. So how do I get him back to how do we get back home? How do I get him back to where he knows so that I can get him back to who he is? And that's got to be quite a shock that she had just found him and now she has to deal with the changes in him and be respectful of the journey that he's been on and the trauma that he's been through.
She seems to either table that or she pushes it aside. Like she seemed triumphant to me. Like, yes, he's alive. Yes, I found him. He's okay. And then I don't know, I think she was just too relieved. I don't think there was enough room to really, at least in that moment. I mean, a lot happens. She finds Rick, and then Nat gets shot. Excuse me. And then he's like, "Okay, no, we have to go with them." Everything was just like very stacked and rushed. But when that helicopter pulls up, like, I think that smile was genuine. Like, I think she's ecstatic.
You think she's just kind of pushing all the rest of it aside, like, okay, we'll deal with that later. He's
Yeah,
alive. That's all that matters.
she won. She won. I mean, she's obviously we see, she's upset about Nat. She's not happy about those things and the road it took to get there. But at the end of the day, she found him and he's okay. I
Yeah,
think.
we're all upset about Nat.
And she
It
even, you can see the wheels turning in her head and her trying to process everything. And then you can kind of see her just kind of decide to make up her mind. And she turns and says, like, okay, I found you. Like, that's what I'm going to focus on.
I think the one moment that kind of is like a thorn in this whole reunion, though, is when he says, "I have to have my gun on you." And I think in that moment she realizes, like, her Rick would never do that. Her Rick would say, "F this, we're leaving." And I think that's, for me, that was when that's the scope of all that must be going on in his head really hit her with the full force of, like, the man I love is going to hold a gun on me and make me raise my arms up helplessly while whatever happens and I have to forget everything and make, like, it. I think there was that was the moment for me when I saw her go, "Oh, this was not how I pictured this reunion." But then thank God he had that moment to tell her, "This is what you need to do," because she, moving on to the next step, she performs beautifully. Her story is perfect and it works.
Yeah, I don't think she was bothered by the gun thing. Like, this is definitely not the first time we've seen him pull a gun on her. Um, but there's no danger there. It's all for show. It's window dressing. I don't really think I don't know. I don't know if some people might be bothered by it or whatever. Like, we see the classic Rick stance, which I think is very cool. um, but we know he doesn't mean it. Safety's probably on. Like, it's like, whatever. Let me just put on a show for these people, and then we can go on to the next thing.
Well, we know that, but the thing I don't know if you picked up on this because I only saw it the second or third time I watched it, and when he kills the man, the guy who shot Nat, he uses her sword,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of absolves her of, or it puts her in a really interesting position because she does say that she was using the knife, and I love that she has said, I use a knife because that sounds so like intentionally ignorant, you know, that she referred to it like that. But it was a very interesting thing
No,
because he
no,
used her weapon.
no. It wasn't her weapon though. He put it in Nat's hand. He led them to believe that Nat did that, not her. So he uses the weapon intentionally.
Right, but she does say that she had this knife and that she had been doing this. So it could have backfired also if they chose to think that she might have been with Nat. You know what I mean? Like it could have all gone very wrong. Thankfully, it worked out.
I mean, she'd already killed several people with it. So one more wasn't gonna. I mean, they weren't out there doing, like a forensic files, a forensic, you know, looking into the scene in that way to see who was holding the sword and what the blood splatter was or anything like that. But it already been used. That's just the reality of it, and they didn't have a whole lot of time from when that transpires to when the next helicopter actually shows up. So I don't know, that didn't really bother me.
Were there any other moments in this episode that we wanted to talk about?
Well, yeah, when he pulls her into that, like, that what is it, like a big concrete room of storage, I don't know what the hell, but in this room where he pulls her in and they kiss very passionately, I might say. He says they don't have me anymore. And this is where she finds out about his hand.
Wait, doesn't it end with Jada saying, "What the fuck are you doing, Rick?"
Yeah, Jadis is at the
It's an
end,
overlap of those scenes.
Oh, okay.
I will
which
say
I thought was it.
oh
Oh, go ahead.
all the uncertainty that you guys were talking about from the initial meeting is actually here in this scene, because he says, I lost a long time ago, one of the last time I tried to get away. And she's like, wait, the last time?
Yeah.
And then, like, there's a lot of, you can see trepidation in her face. Like, oh, we'll get away. And I don't know that she fully believes him. I know she wants to believe him. I didn't see it in the first meeting, but I see it here for sure. Because he's kind of telling on himself a little.
Yeah,
And
I think
also in this scene, she's got a better idea of what he's been living with and what the scope of the CRM is. So I think a lot more dawns on her once she sees their operation and gets a sense, especially at the end when she's standing on the roof and she sees all the helicopters and all the hustle and the bustle and the real military of it. That's
Mhm.
got to be a shock, because not only a shock for her thinking that Rick is in this now, but also a shock because nobody's seen anything like that in however many years since the world fell.
I do think it was a pretty hot moment though, between those two trucks in that room he pulled her into as well.
Yes, that was the romantic reunion that we needed. Yes, that was the romantic part, because they didn't get that when they first found each other.
Like,
It's so funny.
if she hadn't stopped because of that hand, like, I wonder how much further it would have went before they resumed conversing.
Right.
Honestly.
It's so funny because they both are, looking to make sure no one's there, but like by the time she turns back around, like he's already moving in for a kiss and she like he almost attacks her.
And she does ask him, like, have you had to kill people out there?
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't assume one way or the other, but she point blank asks him. She's trying to get a read on him. So one of the last thing Nat says is it still him? Do you know if it's still him? And she was certain then. I don't know that she's 100% certain here in this moment. He's very cagey, and following procedure and whatnot. Like, but it's all understandable.
I think, these are the moments that she very quickly begins to realize, like, it's Rick, but it's not Rick. And she has to now figure out, okay, how much is he not Rick? Like, how lost is he, basically?
Also, it's a little wild to me that, her instinct is to go to, can we stop them? And it's like, girl, this man's been locked up for 8 years. Hell no. Just leave.
Man, and go home.
Go home. Go see how big your kids got, girl.
Save the world this time.
Well, I would hope that it's clear to her that she can't just, like, if it was that easy for them to just go home, then Rick probably would have done that a long time ago. So,
or no, like the whole stop. It was very reminiscent of when she wanted to stop the Saviors, right?
mm-hmm.
I think it was the conversation they had in the jail cell in Alexandria, and it's like, this is not that at all. Like,
Right.
It is two of y'all, and your man's been stuck, and like, he had to play a whole game just to safely get you in there. Please stop. Just you won. Take the win and go home.
I mean, the fact that he cut off his hand to get away and still couldn't get away.
Yeah.
Well, no, he didn't tell her that he cut it though. Just that he lost it. Like, no, Rick, you need to say, I cut off my own hand.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he didn't say it. I can't recall. But like, if somebody had to lose an appendage and they still didn't get home, please just pump the brakes. Pump the brakes on the hero mission. That's my feeling anyway.
That kind of brings up an interesting question that we'll get into more in episode 3, but just to start putting it out there now, what if she had decided to just live there with him? What if she had trusted him that they wouldn't be able to get away and they had just stayed there? That would be wild, wouldn't it?
If they had no kids, sure.
She would be a B at that point.
if she had no children, that would be acceptable, but
right.
Come on. Like, or, if there was a way to maybe bring them there safely, I don't know. How would you even do that? Like, she can't leave. That's the rule. So there's no like there's no real feasible way to do that.
I wonder if Rick had really become a true believer and gone up in the ranks, if he then could have said, hey, can I bring my children? But it would have put everyone at Alexandria at risk, because they would have said, fine, bring your children and then kill everybody else.
Do they even know he has kids? I know Okafor did.
And Jadis knows.
Well, obviously she knows. That terrible bitch. Oh, we gotta talk about we have to talk about her before we wrap it up.
As far as Jadis, and I feel like anybody that is a little bit too much in the know at the CRM, they can die at this point, because so that they're out there genociding people, and that is just perfectly okay with you for no reason, doing it for absolutely no reason.
They have their reasons, but they are dark and mysterious.
What's interesting to me is how, again, the secrets on secrets on secrets come into play, because she knows all this information about Rick, but she's been hanging on to it all these years, just keeping it as leverage. And you have to wonder how many other secrets she knows about how many other people. And who Okafor knew a little bit. Jadis knows the whole thing. Do other people know pieces of information about him? Like, you just never know who
Mm-hmm.
knows what. And I can understand how that would have an effect on his psyche and how he views everything, because he is a person who is motivated by keeping everybody he loves safe. So if he doesn't know what other people know, he is always going to be looking over his shoulder and second guessing everything he says to be extremely careful. And that's going to take a toll on your mind after a while. It explains a lot about his state of mind when she finds him. But it also looks like he and Jadis have been having these meetings and conversations for quite some time, which is weird.
And uncomfortable, and
Ugh, when she gets flirty with him, it makes me extremely uncomfortable.
yes, I want to barf. It's gross.
It felt like it was alluding to something else transpired. I didn't like that. It was very I don't know. She's really creepy and gross, and I hate her just a little. And also that haircut. What was the reason for that? My God.
Never understand that.
Why couldn't they just give her a buzz cut even, man? Like what?
Oh no.
Why? Give her this
Pollyanna
DJ Connor
requested
looking
Pollyanna
bold.
requested this ridiculous haircut. And she said something about Jadis looking more badass and military like, and I'm like, no, you just look
No,
ridiculous. You look
that's
absolutely ridiculous.
not a
Buzz
like
cut would have made her look badass and military.
there are a number of short hairstyles that one could get that's not this. That actually like that's actually bad at like this does not look, it looks goofy to me. He doesn't actually say anything when he walks in and she's sitting there in his room, which I didn't like that either. He just sitting in Buddy's crib, making yourself all comfortable, just being a whole weirdo. I don't
It
know.
was really uncomfortable because she seems so familiar there and so comfortable there. So
Yeah, and she
yeah, I
says
didn't like it.
a long-standing deal. Like what deal is that? What's the story there? I don't know. It feels like there's something else going on that we just don't know, and I don't like it.
I think we can all just agree on that point. We don't like Jadis, and she's creepy, and we don't like her being around Rick.
Yeah.
There we go. And it's funny too because technically she did save his life, and yet we're all like, doesn't matter. We still
Nope.
fucking hate you.
Can't stand her.
Wait,
I feel like if you didn't come to the Ones Who Live to bring Silas with you, then why are you here?
I just have to ask one question before we bring things to a close, because this comes up a lot, and I'm sure it's going to come up a lot more as the series goes on. But did she really save his life? Like, if he had been taken back to Alexandria and not in that helicopter, do you think they could have saved him there?
It really is such a tough call because a lot depends on what medical supplies they had. Because they had a doctor, right? They had
Sadiq.
Sadiq. Yes, I could not remember his name.
Oh, that's right. He was still alive then.
But they had Sadiq, so they had a doctor. But would they have had the supplies, the medicines that they needed to keep him alive? I don't know.
And we know they were looking for him. Like, they didn't stop looking, so they would have found him eventually.
But wasn't
Daryl
there
would have,
a
'cause he was-
walker was right there too? So he might have gotten bit or killed by a walker before anybody was able to get to him.
That's I guess that's the point. I guess Jada can have that she saved him. I guess she's still a lousy bitch though.
Well, I mean, if she was able to save him, then why wasn't she able to set him free? She obviously could have found a way to set him free and let him go back home where he wanted to go, but didn't. So, yes, she gets credit for saving his life, but at the same time, she loses the credit because she has kept him there and then uses what she knows as leverage to keep him there. So that's kind of a shitty thing to do. And I feel like that's just personally motivated because she wants to keep him around.
Which is exactly what she did in the trash heap. Until she fed him to the sharp guy. I mean, she was always there. That tension was always there. She wanted him. Didn't like Michonne being around. Didn't like, she always liked him, but she smelled bad.
I think she still does.
I think she's still, and she obviously doesn't like Michonne. So, but it's interesting that she doesn't turn Michonne in. It just, I don't know. For me, 2 seems to stop. Like, once they reunite, like, it just sticks in my head right there. That's where it stops. So I think I just subconsciously want to just live in that moment where they're finding each other again. They could just give me that on a loop and I'd watch it. Because we waited so long for it.
Yeah.
So I'll never get tired of that. Watching
You
that.
just don't want to get to the Jadis part at the end.
Well, I mean, yeah. Another reason why this episode falls last in my ranking.
Does anyone, just separately, does anyone know why Pollyanna hasn't done any of the premieres or whatever?
She's working overseas.
I don't have any issues with her, but man, Jada sucks.
Yep.
I just wanted to say that again. Okay.
And I like it when people, when actors that I think are genuinely good people and are interesting people, when they play terrible characters that I can be like, man, I hate that person. I think that is a testament to how good of an actor they are. That I can hate the character but like the actor.
1000%.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's just wrap up with favorite moments from this episode. For me, it's going to still be the reunion.
I'm going to go with that kiss in the warehouse place. Oh, okay, I should say something else. Come back to me.
I have a couple of favorite moments. Nat's entrance is actually one of my favorite moments in the episode. He comes in like guns blazing, like a firecracker, and he stays that way the whole time. Like he's a presence the whole time.
I want to add that to mine too, because Nat was so add that to mine.
And yes, also the reunion kiss. How long have we waited for that kiss?
5 years. Good Lord.
I think it was sweet, but you could also kind of sense like the relief and desperation and all the other emotions that were probably going on.
I think I'm going to stick with the warehouse kiss as my favorite moment. I mean, there are a lot of really great moments. Obviously, Nat is a star, and there were a lot of heartbreaking scenes. So
Sarah Beth, what about you?
Oh my God, I was talking the whole time and it was on mute. Holy shit. Sorry. I was like, wait, no one's responding. Go ahead, Sarah Beth. I'll wait.
I would just say when she says, "I found you," knowing what her journey was to get there.
Yes,
And
that
Nat.
was a great moment.
I think there were a lot of amazing moments, a lot of heartbreaking moments. Nat is clearly a standout star. But I'm gonna stick to the warehouse kiss because I am Rashone trash. And it's a great kiss.
All right, so what would you give this episode as a rating? I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for Nat's death. Otherwise, it would be at the top of my list, but I can't give it a great score because we were robbed of Nat.
I was thinking 4 out of 5, which is basically the same thing. 8 out of 10. So that's I feel comfortable hovering around there.
Yeah, I'd go 4 out of 5.
I'm gonna go with what I've been saying. I think that you're gonna find throughout that I won't rate much lower than a 9 or a 10 out of 10 because I absolutely love every single episode. And yes, Nat did die in this episode, but Nat also was introduced in this episode. So it's going to get a 10 out of 10 for me.
All right. So we'll just leave, I guess, on a note of gratitude for their reunion, gratitude for the warehouse kiss, and gratitude for Nat. Nat, We hardly knew you, but we love you.
And let's hope we see him again in the
Yeah,
past,
flashbacks.
in a memory.
Keep that door open.
Well, everyone, we appreciate you sticking around and listening. We will be back next week.
Ooh, we're going to have a lot to talk about in that episode.
Absolutely. We'll probably have a pretty explosive breakdown from episode 3. There's so many things I'm excited to talk about from it. Thank you, all the countries that are listening to us. We have been pleasantly surprised that all of you are enjoying listening to us, and we hope to be able to just keep providing you with amazing content.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Until next week, everyone.